One definition of risk is doing something where the outcome is in doubt, or maybe there's a danger of an undesirable result. In my business, approaching businesses and encouraging them to grow their business and helping them with funding, every approach has a risk that it's a time waster. They don't need you, or they don't believe in leverage or borrowing money, or they may not believe your intentions are pure and you just want to make a commission. So they may, scoff at you a little bit. I've never had that happen, frankly, but maybe they scoff behind my back without me knowing, right? But there is that risk, and the outcome is not known, right? And there is a danger that it's going to be an undesirable outcome. But here's how you hedge that risk. First of all, you understand going in, the outcome is not your responsibility. The integrity approach is your responsibility. That's it. The integrity that you really want to serve them is your responsibility. Outside of that, you're not responsible for the outcome. Anyone who teaches you're responsible for the outcome means they want you to close, get to a yes no matter what. That is not a person you want calling you or approaching you about a product, right? They got one thing in mind, hammer you into a yes. That's not a pro, that's an amateur. And any company teaching that is amateurish. It will not last long, right? So when you're out there and you're saying, okay, I want to be successful, if you can look at it like every new conversation you have is like diversifying a stock portfolio. If you made 1,000 conversations and you did them all with integrity and all with the right intentions, of those 1,000, many of them are going to be desirable outcomes. But every one has a little risk that the outcome's in doubt and it might be undesirable, their response. So you go in knowing that, but you also know this. If I said to you, like in my business, we do funding, business funding. If I said you 1,000 businesses in your town could know about you overnight, know about your integrity, know how you care for them, know how you really want to help them in their business, and know how you've got access to this great product, how many of those 1,000 would take funding? A bunch of them. A bunch of them. That's like buying an index fund in your stock market. You have every stock in the market, you own part of it, right? So you get to ride the waves of all of them. Some of them are going to go down, some are going to go up, some are going to really go up, some are going to really go down. But by having 1,000 stocks in your portfolio, you're probably a little bit better off, diversified. Well, same thing, if you could drop 1,000 conversations in your town, how many of them would become funding? A lot. You do very well, make a lot of money. So you can't, unfortunately, just drop 1,000 conversations overnight. I mean, maybe you can come up with a way to leverage 100 contacts at once or 200 at once by holding some sort of meetings or thinking outside the box. Yeah, great. But even if you had to do one call by one call by one call by one call by one call, eventually have 1,000 calls. And eventually have 1,000 business owners knowing how many fundings will that turn into. Now, not all of them need funding today. So if those 1,000, boom, if you dropped 1,000 conversations overnight, if that was possible, and a bunch of them would get funding, maybe 50 to 100 would get funding now. But how many would get funding next year of those 1,000? A lot of them will need funding next year that don't need it today. They'll have a strategic idea or a pinch next year that they're not in today. And they'll remember you as long as you continue to be the face of funding in your town. So, yeah, there's a risk, but anyone who's successful as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, or in sales, business development, that's what you are. You're not in sales, you're in business development. Anyone who's successful at that understands there's a risk of every reach out, of every handshake, of every networking meeting, that the results will not be desirable. It doesn't mean they'll be bad, but they won't be desirable. And the outcome is doubtful. You don't know for sure anything. But what you do know this, over time, you'll have success. Jesus taught the 4 soils. And he said when he was talking about spreading the news, the great news called the gospel, and Jesus taught if you're going out there and telling people about the gospel, you're going to come across 4 types of soil. It's the same seed, the same message. Your sales process, your business development process is the same message. You're out there to serve your community with whatever that product is, right? You're going to come across 4 soils. He taught the first type of soil is really, it falls on a stony path. and the birds come along and eat up the seeds. It never takes root. Okay, they just never even heard you. The second type is real shallow soil. So the seed takes root. They seem excited, but as soon as it starts to sprout, they don't have deep roots, and the sun comes, scorches them, and they die. Okay, so that's some who seem excited, say yeah, they're interested in learning more, and then seem to just pitter away and stop replying. The third type falls on stony soil, on weeds, and they take root and they're growing up, but then they get strangled out by the weeds, the messages of people around them, the world, competitors speaking poorly, whatever it may be, their partners, their spouse, the business, people around them, or maybe your behavior. Something strangles it out and they die. But the fourth type is good soil. They're the right customer. That's who you're looking for, the right customer. And the seed takes root, grows up, and it multiplies, and you get tenfold, 100-fold the harvest. So Johnny Appleseed planted seeds all over. Not all the seeds became trees. Not every conversation you have will become a tree. But some will. Some won't. So what? Keep planting seeds. God bless you.